Hello and welcome. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you tuning in, whether you're tuning in live or later. If you do tune in later, drop a little later in the chat and we'll get started. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever set up a row of dominoes, whether it's a simple row or some elaborate design? You tap that very first one, and in an instant, the rest just come tumbling down. Now, I want you to imagine, what if your life was like those dominoes? Okay? Your health, your relationships, your energy, your productivity, your success, your joy, your happiness. Those are all the dominoes. And what if I told you that the very first domino that can really impact the rest so significantly was sleep? Sleep. The shocking truth, and I heard about this research, and it was from like 30 years ago, that one bad night of sleep, just one bad night of sleep, can weaken your immune system up to 95%. Now, I haven't found the specific research again, but that's stuck in, I heard it from a friend who researched it when she was working 2 jobs, and one of them was overnight, and she was not getting more than 4 hours of sleep a night, and that stuck with her. Now, all the research I do read, or I have read, says that even one night of poor sleep can significantly, not slightly, not moderately, but significantly impair your immune system. And yet, as high-achieving women, we are conditioned to push through, to just power through, to sacrifice our sleep for productivity, for success, and for everyone else in our lives, except ourselves. But what if that sacrifice is the reason that you are exhausted, irritable, foggy, and, let's be real, on the brink of or already in burnout? That's what we're going to dive into today. So I'm going to take about the next 20 minutes-ish, and we're going to talk about why sleep deprivation is the silent saboteur of your energy and your success, how to get deep, restorative sleep without guilt, self-shaming, and without drugs, and what you can do tonight, if you listen to this tonight, or whatever day you're listening to this, what you can do tonight to set yourself up for better sleep, better rest, and a more energized life. Okay? All right. If you're feeling exhausted and no amount of sleep seems to be enough, if you're constantly running on fumes, this is for you. Let's get into it. So the cost of sleep deprivation, I mentioned the first one already, is your immune system impact. One research study over 25 years ago, said that just one night of bad sleep can reduce your immune function by up to 95%, leaving you vulnerable for illnesses that you may otherwise be able to fight off. Whether that is right now, there is so much going around with colds and flu. Chronic sleep deprivation increases inflammation, which disrupts our hormone imbalance and even accelerates aging. So it isn't just our immune function, there's all of these other pieces to it and can accelerate us aging. I don't think most of us want that. The other toll that the lack of sleep has on us is our emotional and cognitive toll. So we think that, we can take some drug to fix the brain fog or, and it's really getting more sleep can make all the difference in the world. Irritability, slower decision-making, slower processing, these are all impacts from sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation can also have an increased emotional toll from an anxiety perspective. We can be more sensitive to stress, and we can end up being more reactive. Where we used to be able to have something occur and be able to put some space in between and really make a choice of how to respond, we're running so hard, and that lack of sleep, it actually decreases our prefrontal cortex capacity. When we are in that fight or flight, which that lack of sleep can do, it puts us into that fight, flight, or freeze. And when we're in that part of our brain actually shuts down our speech center. We don't have the same capability of creating language, whether it's around how we're feeling, what we're thinking, what we need to do in our work life day. It's just not as, we don't have the same level of function. They did in the book by Besser van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score. He talks about how when we're in that fight, flight, or freeze, it can shut down our language centers. The other thing, and this kind of leads right into that, is that your performance and success are impacted by a lack of sleep. A lack of sleep can disrupt your productivity. It can, as we mentioned earlier with the brain fog, it can create a poor focus, and all of that is leading to burnout. And so many women continue to just power through their day with that lack of sleep, and just power through, and that just doesn't equal high performance. Every time you're powering through on less and less sleep, you're actually less and less productive. You're not as able to get as much done. And so there's a few reasons why high-performing women struggle with sleep. The first one is the guilt factor. I should be doing more. I can't afford to rest. You know, I've even heard, I'll rest when I'm dead. Or I'm just waiting till I retire. I had one woman say that, and it was over a year. And I'm like, you're going to take a year of lack of sleep and stress and wait till you retire. And I've mentioned this on many podcasts, how many women I know who either didn't make it to retirement or in retirement came down with so many serious illnesses. Cancer diagnoses. I had one friend, 2 cancer diagnoses. Well, one cancer diagnosis and then another cancer scare. And so this guilt factor of I need to do more. When is enough enough? You know, I love what. Oh no, I can't even think of his name. I cannot believe I can't think of his name. I'll think of it. The guy that founded Facebook. Why can't I think of that? Mark Zuckerberg. I think it was Mark Zuckerberg. Anyway, I was listening to a podcast and I think it might have been a recent podcast of Mel Robbins, and she was talking about, and I'm trying to think about, maybe it wasn't Mark Zuckerberg. It was Jeff Bezos, I think. I think it was Jeff Bezos. Anyway, one of those two. It was her podcast about the 3 questions. And one of them was, when you're trying to make a decision or when you're thinking about something. So let's think about, should I power through? Should I get, 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep tonight? Will I regret this when I'm 80? That's a tougher question for this one, because it takes time for us to see the impact sometimes of this lack of sleep. And sometimes we blame other things for us getting sick, for our immune system being compromised. But a lack of sleep is such a huge factor. Such a huge factor. The productivity myth. So this is another reason why high achieving women struggle with sleep, is that there's this myth. Society glorifies overworking. It glorifies making sleep feel like a luxury rather than a necessity, rather than it being what our body actually needs to be the productive, to have the productivity that we really want in our career, to be able to have the impact, to be able to have the strategic thinking, to be able to really go through and do deep work. isn't possible when we are just powering through and powering through and powering through meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. So productivity does not need for us to be powering through, to be just overworking. To be productive, we actually need quality sleep. We need enough sleep and we need quality sleep. I remember one of my coaches talked about, and she was what's referred to as an ontological coach, which focuses a lot on being versus doing. And it's more than that, a lot more than that. So Roberta, I'm sorry if I didn't describe it well enough. And she talked about how a human adult needs 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And part of what that does, we think, oh, I don't need that much. And you don't realize what it's doing to your body. When we sleep, we need to get to a certain point of our sleep where our cells are repairing themselves. Through part of our sleep, our cells repair themselves, and then they duplicate. Because every part of our body, the cells are duplicating, and at some point, each part of our body has a whole new set of cells. But if we don't go through enough sleep, if we don't get enough sleep, that repair process is broken. And so we have these cells that aren't fully repaired. And so they're damaged cells. They're still damaged. They haven't gone through the repair process, and they're duplicating as damaged cells. So now we have even more damaged cells, which is part of why we have a weakened immune system. Another reason why high-achieving women, this is why I have an outline. I have to bring myself back sometimes. High-achieving women struggle with sleep is the nervous system factor. When we are powering through and going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting and have this level of stress that never comes back down to this calm, grounded, parasympathetic nervous system, we're in this high alert kind of stress. That cortisol and adrenaline, that elevated level, it makes quality sleep almost impossible. So when you're always in go, go, go mode and you don't give your body that ability to actually downshift before you go to sleep, then it makes restful, reparative sleep, regenerative sleep really difficult. There was something else I was going to say there. It'll come back. So now let's talk about how you can, I'm going to talk about 5 ways that you can get more sleep without guilt, without shame. And the first is to really redefine sleep as a non-negotiable performance tool. I love this idea, a non-negotiable performance tool. And part of it can just be shifting our language around sleep. I really should sleep more. I need to sleep more. Need carries such a connotation of scarcity that it actually creates more stress. And some ways that you can just shift your language, you can shift to, I want to get adequate sleep so I can function at my best. So that's step 1. Redefine sleep as a non-negotiable performance tool. Just like your education, your experience, the tools that you have in your toolbox that you use every day in your career and in your leadership. Another tool is sleep, and it's a non-negotiable performance tool. The second way that you can get more sleep without guilt, without shame, is by resetting your nervous system before you go to bed. And I'm really going to challenge you to try some of these things and see what it feels like to bring your nervous system from this constant hum of stress and cortisol and adrenaline down to feeling really grounded and really calm. I was almost ready to cough there for a moment. So there's several ways that you can, what's referred to as down-regulating. And when I say that, when we experience a high stress event, let's say we get cut off in traffic and we're like, and you can just feel that rush of adrenaline. I like using that example because it's not something that's always life-threatening, but it feels like it in the moment. And that rush of adrenaline comes through. Oftentimes, I will shake my hands and shake my body to let that adrenaline roll off. That's one thing you can do, is move your body, is shake off some of that stress. Let me come back to my example though. If that, like getting cut off in traffic or even some other significant event, I was in a bicycle accident, I was, at Molson Coors when the shooting happened, very high stress events. And if this is calm and grounded, most of us operate here in the middle at this constant hum of stress, this constant hum of cortisol and adrenaline just coursing through our veins. My coach, the same woman I referred to earlier, used to say that most of us are marinating in cortisol. And that is weakening our immune system. So what are those ways? How can you reset your nervous system before you go to bed? One is deep breathing. And a deep breathing is not, because that actually activates your nervous system. Deep breathing, you want to inhale to a count, whatever it is. Let's say you inhale to the count of 4. You want to exhale twice as long. That's one thing that can downregulate your nervous system. There's several self-hypnosis techniques. I'm going to share one with you, and we'll go into some more. I'm learning so many of these in the last 6 months to a year. I just love them. And one of them is by focusing very intently on one thing. When we narrow our focus, that upregulates our nervous system. That creates kind of that fight, flight, or freeze, or that intensity of stress almost. But if you focus on that one thing, and then without moving your eyes, start to notice everything in the periphery. I can just feel when I do it, I can just feel my body just calming down. Give it a try tonight. It's a simple thing you can do, is focus on something, give it your attention for a few seconds, and then without moving your eyes, start to notice everything in your peripheral vision. I see windows, I see plants, I see a cabinet. What are all the things you notice? That's another way to downregulate your nervous system. There's something called the havening technique. And what that looks like is you take your hands and you cross them over your shoulders and you just rub down your shoulders. I hope I'm not making a lot of noise into the microphone, and then all the way to your hands. And that's another way you can downregulate your nervous system. Or another way is you can do this while you're lying in bed, or when you want to give your body a cue to relax, is start from the tip of your head. And this is a good one to do lying down, but you can do it sitting up as well. But start at the tip of your head and see if you can physically feel from just very slowly each part of your body, and feel the skin and the muscles and the tissue and the bones just giving way to relaxation. And just work your way all the way through from the top of your head all the way to the tips of your toes. So those are several ways that you can downregulate your nervous system before bed. Also, another thing that may seem counterintuitive if you're focusing on trying to get good sleep is to let go of sleep perfection. One night of bad sleep, even though we said it can really compromise your immune system, you are not doomed. Instead of feeling guilty or shameful or frustrated, focus on what you can do the next night. Every day is a new day. Every day is a reset. How can I get better sleep tonight? And I'm telling you, if women DM me, if you're waking up, roasting and taking, turning the fan on high and all this other stuff, there's someone I can refer you to who has helped me tremendously. So that is, that letting go of sleep perfection, that it has to be perfect every night. If you continue to use these tools that I talked about in terms of resetting and downregulating your nervous system before bed, back into that parasympathetic, nervous system, that's going to help a ton. And then see if you can create another tool. This is the fourth one that you can get better sleep without shame or guilt, is to create an evening wind down ritual. See if you can stop using screens 30 minutes, an hour before bed. Create an intentional boundary between when you finish work and when you go to sleep. So you're not checking emails and texting people, even being on screens, within the 30 minutes to an hour before bed can impact your sleep. And this is something that I read from, and I don't remember the author's name, but Deep Work is the name of the book. And he wrote about how giving your brain active rest, so picking a shutdown time, let's say it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever it is for you. And from then until you go to sleep, no more work. Even if you're doing something like reading a book or, reading stories to your kids or doing a puzzle or watching a documentary, not binging Netflix or scrolling, doom scrolling social media, that active rest actually can improve your productivity in the next day. And also the last one is to just prioritize rest like a CEO. Successful leaders really make sleep a strategic advantage, not a weakness. And there's so many things that go into why we think we have to work into the evening and do more and do more and do more. There's a lot behind that. I'm not going to go into that now. I've touched on it slightly in other live streams. I'll leave you with one final thought, because there is so much behind some of these things, that if you are exhausted, if you are running on fumes, and you're still trying to convince yourself that you don't have the time to rest like you should, if you don't need another to-do list. You need a different way to operate. You need a different operating system up here and within here. I would love to help you. I'm going to drop a link in the comments once this posts, and you can book a free call where we can talk through what is your burnout story? What is leading to your burnout? And then what does success and what does a life without burnout look for you? I work with women one-on-one, and I create a bespoke program. It's very customized to each client, where I work with you on what your vision is for that life without burnout, and we work on how do we get there together. So thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, please DM me or drop something in the comments, and I look forward to talking with you next week. Have a great rest of your week.